Okay, if everything went according to plan, which nothing does on this show because we're super professional, we should be live on Razzleplasm stream. So, for the 12 of you who made it here that even show up to China Talk, we are on Razz stream. We were locked out of the official China. If only we knew someone who worked for Twitch, who was like a really friendly guy that traveled all the time. No, it's fine. We'll figure it out. We'll fix it by next week. The YouTube VOD will be uploaded to the original YouTube channel for China Talk, so everything else will be fine. But here we are, Razzleplasm stream. I'm Frostgreen, your host. With me, I have Kelsey Moser, Drexen, and of course, the man of the hour, Razzleplasm.
Hey.
Hi.
How's it going?
Hi. Okay, we've got a ton to cover, although we're going to keep it a little bit broad because we had a couple of major events happen. So first and foremost, we didn't get to do the China Talk 2 weeks ago because we didn't have any LPL this weekend. And the reason why we didn't have any LPL this weekend is because of the Demacia Cup tournament. So we're talking about the games that happened last week as well as the LPL or the Demacia Cup that happened this weekend. So first and foremost, let's just get it out of the way. Let's just cover it briefly. We're going to talk about the Demacia Cup shit show of that venue and the connection problems and all of the delay time. inSec broke his leg. Like, that's how bad this was.
I call it the spooky stadium because it all started when inSec jumped and broke his leg. And after that, it just went to shit. Like, everything about it.
Shit going on in that stadium, man. I don't know.
Oh,
How
God.
could they
I
not
think the
find the
gravitational pull
stairs?
might be heavier in
Okay,
there.
okay, yeah. So, if you haven't heard, which it was all over Reddit, so you should have heard, inSec broke his leg. Now, he was one of, I guess, many players that decided that since they couldn't find the exit, or I guess maybe it was a bet, we're unsure.
They couldn't find the stairs to the first floor from the second floor.
I can't find a staircase. I'm going to jump out of a second floor window.
Pretty much.
Is anyone actually surprised that it was inSec of all the players to break his leg?
I think if it
mean,
was anyone else, it would be
There
more
were
tragic and less
way
funny.
too
It still
many
sucks.
fat jokes, and I'm not making any fat jokes, okay? It's just, sometimes
I'm not
you
even
just
making a
fall
fat
wrong.
joke.
I don't
When you
even
watch-
think it's about his proportions.
Yeah,
it's just that
exactly.
it's inSec.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not even about a
Yeah.
fat joke. People assume that I'm making fun of his weight. I'm not making fun of his weight. I'm making fun of... Have you ever watched that guy play Hackerum? Like, of
It's-
course it was inSec.
And the joke about it being Jarvan in real life, because, like, his Jarvan ults are never super, well thought out. No, but, like, I don't want to bash inSec, obviously. He's has a tibial fracture, he's still in the hospital, he has to have surgery.
Oh my god, that's
he's
awful.
He's in a bad place, so...
And Starhorn has tough opponents coming up, so...
Yeah, and this is like the
completely
week
sure.
that they need to have their full lineup at maximum strength because this is like the one opponent that's left that they could 2-0 Energy Pacemaker, right?
Are we sure that he jumped and he wasn't pushed? Like, are we sure that Kane wasn't up in the window behind him?
Well, Kane is already... He can't make top 8. Like, EP cannot make top 8. Even if they 2-0 the rest of their sets, they're done.
See, people think that Chinese esports is, like, really shady and all these, like, background deals. What if Energy
my God.
Pacemaker had a deal with, like, Gamty and King? And they're like, we can guarantee
Master
that...
3.
Or Master
Yeah.
3.
WE, for sure, because WE is now in 10th place. The dream is alive.
I'm just saying, are we sure he jumped? No.
I mean, no, we're not sure he jumped. We were not
obviously,
there.
and obviously we're joking around, but like Kelsey said, he is hurt. He's going through surgery, so it is super unfortunate. I like inSec. I like him as a player. I would like to see him healthy and playing at his top form because I like Name more, and Name needs inSec to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, thank God, I mean, at least they're not going against... I don't think they're going against EDG or OMG, so that's good at least,
The
but...
guy broke his leg, and we're like, man, thank God, at least they're not
Well,
facing EDG.
obviously, I want inSec to get better, but I'm really concerned for the state of the team because some fucking vile force out there keeps throwing Starhorn off a cliff for every spring split.
Wow, that's a perfect...
So I'm just saying, like, what the fuck? It's just insane. It's really bad luck
Throwing
the fourth
off a
time because
cliff.
Because, like, it's not even... I mean, it's like, okay, if they don't win, a certain amount of matches, they're not going to make playoffs.
So here's
And
the question.
so it's, like, the most important week for them, really.
Is Starhorn Royal Club cursed? We talk about the trend all the time that Starhorn has on, like, their mighty rise, and they're always... Like, they always fall off. Like, now that you pointed out, the trajectory
just-
that they take every single time is pretty suspicious.
Yeah.
They use up all their luck at Worlds, and then they can't even beat Koreans. So the question is it worth it? Because
To
they
be fair-
immediately nosedive, and it gets worse every year. Because the first year they placed 5th, right, which was, and then 6th place they just barely avoided getting auto relegated. So
Well-
now that you don't get auto relegated, you have to get to like the very worst position you can be in without getting relegated, and then I don't know. They probably will get relegated. Like I don't feel good about them right now.
It's really sad. It's one of those. It's a situation in which they do still have to face tough opponents. Like even though they're facing EP, they still have Vici, and then like the week afterwards, it's like IG Snake. And take what you. I don't know about the whole Snake situation, but it's still going to be a tough thing with them. Starhorn has a tough trail,
Especially
tougher than.
since
Yeah.
best way to
What?
beat Snake is to lane swap, and Starhorn Royal Club doesn't lane swap ever.
Well,
so.
okay, let's talk
They're
about
already at
Demacia Cup before we
disadvantage.
start going into Snake. So we talked about inSec, he broke his leg. That was super unfortunate. But on top of that, we had a ton of delays, internet connection. This is the one thing. People were bitching all over Twitter about like how shitty of a run tournament Demacia Cup is and things like that, which, to be fair, there were a ton of technical difficulties. So I understand the frustration, especially as like a bystander and audience trying to watch the stream and dealing with all of that. I don't know. Where in China was this held? Do you know where the venue was, Kelsey?
It was Qinggong. Yeah.
The only reason I'm making this statement is my time in Shanghai, the power went out about like 3 times once a day, and every single person that I talked to there, because I was like, why is this going out? Maybe it's just this building. Like, no, it just happens. Like, there's so many people. So, I mean, there's technical difficulties that arise in China that might not arise for other venues and things like that. Not saying that the power was an issue, but like I can understand. They're not working with the best infrastructure.
Yeah. And of course Shanghai is gonna be a little bit better infrastructurally as well than some of the outlying areas. After the first day, the connection at the venue is much better, and they did a dress rehearsal the day before, and that's how inSec broke his leg. So, I mean, the connection, you have to think, was good at that time, and they had no way of knowing really that it was going to be bad on the first day. So, I mean, that part sucks. The one thing I will slam them for is that their decision making in terms of how they handled the games where the pause timed out was really inconsistent. So,
Yeah.
Explain what happened.
well, there were a bunch of games that had pause time. You know, there's a 40-minute pause timer in League of Legends. And if you use up the entire pause, the game resumes. You can no longer just pause. So the decision-making they had in these circumstances was inconsistent in the 3 games where the pause was the longest, I guess. So the first one was going to be the very first game of the tournament, Edward Gaming versus Master 3. And this is where Dade responded and had the rant on his Facebook where the pause timed out. Someone told him, the translator told him to clear out the wave, and then the translator afterwards told him, okay, no, don't clear out the wave, immediately go back to base and wait out the pause timer, and this is according to Dade's account.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Edward Gaming's waiting in their base. They're not doing anything. They're not moving. And then they make the decision that they're just going to sit and wait for the game to end naturally and have the minions kill one of the team's nexus and then do a remake. Except at the end, they ruled that because Dade cleared out that wave and also Looper at the end did like a cheeky teleport, even though he didn't really hit anything or affect any minions, that because the players didn't stay within their fountain, that Master 3 forfeited the right to the remake. Obviously, Dade was like really mad.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't necessarily because the organization was bad. It could have been a mistranslation. It could have been a lot of things. And if you're in the position as an organizer and you know like these connection issues are going to persist, do you want to remake the game? So it wasn't the best decision maybe all around, but you're going to be in this situation like someone's going to be unhappy regardless, so that sucks. But then it gets further, and that's like the first kind of screw up. The next game where the timer pawns out, pawns out. the pause times out is the Snake versus QG game, the first game, and then in this case they sit there for a while with both teams in their base for like 15 minutes, and then the minions don't like do anything. They're kind of like stuck, and they're working on both sides, and it takes so long. And I guess eventually the organizer just like, screw it, you guys can be free, end the game now. And so like after these really, really big stutter times, like I have to imagine the players were playing the game, and every 5 seconds the screens would just jump to the next scene, and it was probably incredibly laggy for the players. And then QG wins that first game. They were probably going to win the first game before the pause came in anyway, just like Edward Gaming was probably going to win that first game when the pause hit anyway. There were like very, very obscure chances for the other teams to win. It was just so bizarre that there was this inconsistency in the ruling. Third game.
Hold on. Here's my more important question, because you don't have to cover like every single instance. We understand the core of it. Do you think that any of these inconsistencies changed the outcome of the tournament?
I mean, I think
because that's what really matters.
Weirdly, the third and the first game of the Master 3 and Edward Gaming series were the closest games of the event.
Yeah.
I think ultimately Master 3 still wouldn't win, but it was clear, especially in the second game, that Dade was pretty tilted. So you can maybe make an argument that Master 3 could have taken the game, or this could have affected how the event went. The other argument is that Snake, in the Snake versus QG series, they ended up moving them to a net cafe. So we don't really know anything about, like, that they had to move this particular series to the net cafe, and they decided to do this for this series only.
As far as, like, end game results, the things that we can, because obviously you're going to take those
I actually
those
disagree
variables.
with Raz. I think that QG still would have won.
It comes, like, my take on it, it was a close series, it was. And the bullshit that ran through the entirety of the series, that, like, I think it had, like, of course it has a mental effect on it, but at the same time, I feel like both teams are really, really inconsistent with how they play team fights, in the sense that, like, they're really prone to throwing games. Like, out of every other team, like EDG, you look at that team and it's like, okay, they can ride this game out easily. But with Snake, and with especially Qiao Gu, I don't know what the hell happened. I have no clue, and I would actually be more inclined to say that Snake would be able to come back, because they're both teams that are willing to start fights whenever. So, it's fair to say that Qiao Gu probably would have won, but I think that's a higher rate in which you can say that.
But does it change who won the tournament? Because
okay, no.
I, like most Western fans, only care about the top 3 teams that are going to Worlds, and then the person who wins the title. I don't care about who comes in third or second.
I think it would have. I still think Qiao Gu would have won the Snake Qiao Gu series anyway, because I think that Snake was outclassed individually, and they were surprised by how fast Qiao Gu was sort of ending those games. And we've seen that teams that move extremely fast and in surprising ways is kind of like a weakness for Snake.
That was your segue to talk about who did win the tournament.
Okay.
Who was?
I was gonna say, I also think that Qiao Gu had like really, really good bans against Snake, which is obviously one of the best ways to beat them. So
everybody's just gonna keep throwing those bans at Snake until they start actually.
Xerath Lulu like every game.
We have guys. I have a section for Snake.
Okay.
We can just like run free with them, just like frolic through the. You know what I'm saying? Edward Gaming, EDG. Come on, who won the Demacia Cup?
Yep. I mean, do we even have to say Edward Gaming?
Okay, so what does this mean?
I like the delay on that answer there.
Edward Gaming.
Edward Gaming. And, like, the finals, regardless, that finals is going to happen. Like, IG and Edward Gaming right now are both teams in which they're at their peak. Like, obviously, you can't say at their peak with EDG, because EDG will just, like, stay there. And you're like, okay, are they going to do, like,
when you say at the peak, for people who maybe haven't watched all of EDG or haven't watched a lot of Invictus Gaming or maybe haven't analyzed what's been happening with IG, like what does this mean? What do these two teams look like? What were their win conditions? What does it look like when EDG is playing at their peak? What did it look like for IG? What was the difference between the beginning of the season and them being a mid-tier LPL team now coming into this monster that they've turned into. Is this the hybrid roster finally working out? Are these other factors? Are these patch changes? Zzitai is now playing in the top lane. I mean, what are all the variables that came together to make the perfect storm for Invictus Gaming to actually look like a competent team? When was the last time we got to say that?
I don't even want to.
Well, we were saying it all last year, and it ended up being completely wrong. So.
Yeah, I mean, I also
God
actually,
bless Yangtze.
I also really, I mean,
He could play Shyvana.
granted they were undefeated on their way there. I also don't think IG had like the toughest time getting to the finals. Like the 3-0 versus LGD was really impressive.
LGD and Vici Gaming, right? So
no, wait.
They faced Vici. They took out Vici, but Vici, of course, was like having that till Amato played Jace and
that was
whatever
before
else.
the playoffs, though, right?
Yeah,
It's
I know,
like
but I'm just
herding
saying
cats.
that they didn't have like a super difficult, a super easy. Like they probably had the hardest of the teams that ended up being there. Like unless you can say Qiao Gu had a harder time because they had to face Snake and OMG. But
That's true. Yeah, but the thing that's really weird about OMG getting that. Well, actually, that's kind of sidetracking from this discussion. I was just going to say
we're
OMG's
talking about IG.
Yeah, I know.
I know you guys can't see my facial expression, but I'm literally just staring at you like, what the fuck are you doing? I asked you to explain who IG were. Come on, IG. Who are they? What does it look like when they're playing at their peak performance? What were the things that changed? What came together? And then we can talk about... I know you guys keep going back to Snake. It's like a magnet.
Yeah, I know. It's so easy to talk about.
The hypnotism effect of the... Okay.
Invictus Gaming.
Invictus Gaming. So...
Zzitai, Cacao, Rookie.
The thing I saw the most on Twitter and Reddit was, wow, Cacao and Rookie are hard carrying this team. That was true when they were a mid-tier LPL team.
Exactly.
And I still think, obviously, Cacao and Rookie are going to be like the best players on the roster at the moment, but what's happening is they've come together and they've actually become a team, and they're working better with their coach, and they're coming up with... I think what Invictus Gaming is doing right now is they're like the counter-strategy team.
Okay, explain what that means. Because you saying they came together and worked as a team is like saying, well, they win the game because they killed the Nexus.
Well, prior to when they were a mid-tier LPL team, they had this guy named Pokemon in the top lane who had a very obvious skill ceiling, and it was clear that if they kept Pokemon, they were going to have this skill ceiling that brought down like the other players. They wouldn't be able to surpass a certain level, so they had to come up with some kind of solution, and they ended up putting Zzitai in. And Zzitai, if anyone knows, he's one of those high skill cap players who has like a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of weird gimmicks. But he's been practicing really hard, and he's looking much better in the top lane and much more comfortable. Beyond that, they kind of understand the strengths and weaknesses of their roster better. They get that Kid and Kitties that are going to play most of these like burst type bottom lanes, but they're going to play more conservatively. They understand that Cacao like plays more directing junglers, the Lee Sin with the Q that goes in and directs the team in a certain way. They're picking up the pace of their game, which before they were playing much more slow and it wasn't really working out for them. Rookie can now go ham because they have the wording working out better. Zzitai is able to actually bully his lane opponents because he's more comfortable, and then when they team fight, it looks a lot better. They actually have this style where, like, they use tanks very well. They send in the tank player, who's usually Zzitai lately, and he just like eats all of the damage at once, and then the rest of the team is just there and they collapse. It's like these teams fall for it every time. But overall, they're developing the style which is a counter style, and they do this in draft phase, and they seem to have this idea of how to beat these teams. And we saw it when they beat Snake. They let Snake have the picks that they want, and then they picked in LPL, and then they picked a composition that countered, like the Mundo and the Juggernaut with the
I'm glad that you're bringing it up, but just to make this like super obvious and like dumb it down, what they do is they bait teams into picking compositions that they've prepared specific strategies for. So are you saying that IG tailor their strategies to every single... Like, they don't take a one play style. They tailor everything to each team that they face? And does this only happen in draft phase, or does this continue over into their play style in-game? Like, their formula?
they're able to tailor their play style to teams. We saw this also against LGD. Like, obviously, if it were a one-off, I wouldn't say this were a continued thing, but they did this against LGD. They even did this against WE to an extent. Like, they picked the Scion away, right? And then they played the Scion really effectively. It's like almost like, this is how you play Scion, WE. Like, this is how we do it. And then against LGD, they played really strong lanes, and they prevented them from having that wave control that LGD is so good at, right? So they're able to identify the win conditions and the typical play styles of the teams that they're facing. And I think they tried that against EDG. They let EDG have like a lot of their EDG picks, but EDG is EDG. They're just like really hard to pin down because you can understand how they play and where their strengths or weaknesses are, but they have so many layers protecting like these weaknesses that it's hard to pull them back.
Drexen Raz.
Yeah.
If you were to identify...
No, okay. I do want to say that I actually think that just like with the nature of how Zzitai is a player, I think it's like really refreshing for him to be able to play a new role. Just because he was already getting really bored of League. And so I feel like this is like a new opportunity for him to explore something that makes it feel like a different game entirely.
We had to force him into a completely different role for him to give a shit about his career.
But like in the history of like recent like roster changes that are like I should say just like positions in the lane, like I feel like this is one of the better ones. Like he looks like he's understanding and picking it up really well. Granted, again, like one thing that bothered me about their 3 over LGD is like LGD had this weird obsession with picking Vladimir in that set, and I don't think it was really that effective by any means. So like that's why I don't know. That set is like really weird to me, and I don't know. But
who was Zzitai playing?
Zzitai, he did have one Scion game, and then I'm pretty sure he actually. I know that Kelsey was pointing out how like Zzitai is usually the tank, but I think in that set he was the carry most of the time because he played Hecarim and.
Right, he played these strong like against
Hecarim
LGD.
and Rumble, yeah.
Yeah, he played strong bully lanes, right?
Yeah.
And he actually ended up beating out Acorn in the 1v1s. He didn't 1v1 Flame, but yeah.
Do you think that Zzitai is a better top laner or a better mid laner? Not Kelsey, Raz, or Jackson.
Definitely not by any means by his prime, but I think one of the things that you have to look at when you make that comparison is like I think we have to wait until some new top lane meta champions come out to see if he can pull that whole situation of like learning a champion really quickly works out for him in the top lane when like the champion pool switches around, because right now I mean he's just kind of got shifted in and the meta was kind of like already in place, save a few champions. So I'd like to see a shift in where he has to play another champion, see if he picks up these top lane champions faster, like he did mid lane before everyone else, and to see if the plateauing is still an issue.
You think that Zzitai wouldn't be able to make a shift in meta effectively to pick up just random new champions?
No. I think that'd be really good at it. What I'm curious about is if he'll carry over that same ability to do that, like from the mid lane to the top lane. I'm wondering if that translation will be equally as potent for him.
Raz?
He said?
Nope, Kelsey, Raz.
No, let her talk.
No, Raz.
Raz?
Raz?
Raz? Okay.
This is on your Twitch, man.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You're the
That's
star.
True, that's true. I got the spotlight shining. He's basically a slip-on shoe. Like, he picks... Like, I think he fits more in top lane than in mid lane because, I don't know. It's so difficult to say that because whenever I look at his mid lane champions, I'm impressed in what he can play, not so much how well he can play it. Like, he plays really well, and don't get me wrong, but when other people like get at their hands on that champion for a month even, it's like, okay, what value do I have in Zzitai?
I see.
And then
he's not a true believer.
Like, I love Zzitai.
You claim to be an Invictus Gaming
No,
fan.
like, I love Zzitai, but it's just how it is. Like, you'll come in Season 2 Worlds with, like, Spring.
Raz?
You're like, oh, man, that's so much.
Well,
but anyway.
One question. Who is the best Zed player in China? Who is it?
Mickey guy.
Actually-
it or not, Cool has a better all-time record on Zed
Kelsey,
than Ari.
you shut your whore mouth. Who is the best Zed player?
Something I want to say about Zzitai, though, is that something that's not really fair to compare his current performance to his prior performance too, is like, yeah, we can say that his mid lane is better than his top, and he's still learning top lane, but it's actually not a very fair comparison, just because the top lane talent of China that he has to go up against now as a fresh top laner is absolutely insane compared to the mid lane talent he had to go against. Like
literally world class.
Yeah, like literally the best top laners in the world in his transition, as opposed to mid lane, where like obviously China has good mid laners, but I mean the talent pool wasn't quite as wide in that position as I'd say top lane is now. So he's holding his own against players that are way better comparatively to his opponents that he had in years prior. So that's also something to take into consideration.
Do you guys think, Kelsey, no. Do you guys think that Invictus Gaming is going to edge out? Because everyone keeps asking who are the top 3 Chinese teams, and
Edge out.
yeah,
Ah.
no, but
Okay.
it's LGD, OMG, EDG is what everyone says, and of course sometimes you can throw in a snake there depending on if they had a good week. You know, the wind was behind them, they were going downhill. I have no idea. RIG, do you think it's capable that they can knock OMG or LGD down?
Well, let me say
I
that
think-
it's... Go, you say you go first. I want to say... Okay, no, I'll say it now. I don't give a fuck. IG is the second best team in China right now.
Damn!
There you go. Second best team.
Why?
Because they're the smartest...
You're
like,
telling me that Invictus Gaming with Zzitai top, a position switch, Qiao and Rookie, and then Kid and Kitties are better
They're
than
consistent.
Going, Loveling, Cool, Uzi Eye, and Cloud.
They're the only
Um,
consistent, smart team out there other than EDG. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Invictus
Gaming?
Gaming are the consistent smart
No.
team now?
Okay, not
Hang
cons-
on.
But
I
it's
can
like
see-
so hard to pin down
I
consistency
think
in
that they're
China.
dependent on Lee Sin.
Kelsey?
Yeah, they're doing it.
Raz?
I mean, they have Italy.
Dang it.
They
Like,
don't
let's-
look as good with Nidalee as with Lee Sin.
Okay, what you guys are saying that
Okay.
Invictus Gaming's success hinges on their jungle pick?
To an
So
extent.
is
yeah.
Qiao the true carry of the team?
Well, he's always been the true carry of that. Him and Rookie have basically been carrying that.
Okay,
yeah.
wait, but Kelsey implied earlier that that Reddit was saying that Qiao and Rookie were the true carries in the tone that she didn't think that was true. And you
I
guys
said
just talked
they're the
about
best players.
how
roster.
Zitai's performance was really what transitioned this change in Invictus Gaming's ranking.
Well, she's
and
right.
made
In
them
this,
go from a mid-tier team to a top-tier team.
yeah, like the biggest thing about Invictus Gaming was that they've had like consistency in their mid lane and jungle, and then their top laner was just not like they either had Pokemon. They had save for a little while, but that just
Are
like
you
literally
suggesting that Kid and Kitties aren't consistent?
they're good. They're consistent. They're okay. Like they're not. You can't like pin them to carry a game. That's,
If you look at their strengths and weaknesses, they look a lot like OMG did last year. Let's just put it that way. Like they have a consistent bottom lane that's not going to make like massive plays except for in special situations with special picks like Ezreal or Vayne. And then you have like a top lane who's going to be who's looking really strong right now. We need to give him some more time before we really go that far. But like we've got this jungle and mid that are making these like explosive assassin plays. So
Kelsey, Raz and I are having a moment where I'm grilling him, and you keep butting in. Raz.
God, everybody, it's a show of freedom, man. It's a free. We're free
No, this
China
is not
talk.
an American show, dude. It's a Chinese
Free
show.
Okay.
It's also the
That's-
jacket show. We all
That's
decided to put jackets on today.
trying to
But,
find out
okay,
who's
The
best
thing,
jacket.
actually, Raz, did you have anything else to say?
No, not really.
Okay, because I was going to say the thing about judging IG in second is there are arguments based on performance, like recently, that you could actually have that argument. But the problem is, like, when you look at the teams that they're passing up to get in that second spot, theoretically, like, you have to, like, understand context in the situation, too. Like, if you look at LGD and Snake, like, they're kind of like that figured-out team that needs to find a new way to, like, kind of cheese their... I don't want to say cheese, because that sounds like not really crediting them enough for their success. But, I mean, they obviously have to find their new niche, and if they don't, then yeah, sure, IG's a better team. But then if you put them above OMG, I almost don't know if that's really fair, because yeah, OMG hasn't been looking really good lately, but they also haven't been looking really good because they're like forcing strategies that don't like reinforce what they're already really good at. Like, Loveling's been trying to like play Nunu for some ungodly reason. Like,
really
I don't know
hilarious.
why. And like, so we can't judge their losses off of that because that's obviously not the OMG that would come prepared in a grand finals or in a playoff that was really important to them. I don't know how seriously these teams take Demacia Cup, but I can tell you right now that if like OMG got it together and we're like, oh, how do we win? Oh, Loveling goes Nunu, or we play Protect the Kog'Maw with and it's like they're doing shit, like they're experimenting in ways that I don't think work for their team to win. And so I can't. That's why I can't put IG above OMG, because I feel like IG is like, I want to say like they're a lot more like try hard right now.
Yeah.
But just because I mean I don't know. We have to see the LPL playoffs before we can say that IG's like better than OMG. Like I'll put them ahead of LG and Snake, sure, just because it's a lot harder just to like pinpoint something in IG and be like, okay, that's all we need to do to get rid of them. That's fine. Like it's not like you can just ban out Kakao and then all of a sudden, okay, IG's like easily defeatable like you can with Snake and like banning their mid lane and their support around Crystal or anything like that. But with OMG, it's like it's a little bit harder. It's like, okay, so you have the jungler playing uncomfortable stuff. You have team comps in general that don't work for the team, and then you have Gagoing, who's probably in the biggest slump in the history of his career. And
I don't even know if that's true. He's just playing like top lane Rek'Sai for some.
I mean, he's
reason.
he's playing weird stuff, but that's what I'm saying is like OMG is way too heavily into experimenting and not playing to what fortifies their strength to make that judgment. And I will not put OMG IG ahead of OMG until I see the playoffs.
There's this weird thing that happens when you talk to fans of the LPL. Like, everyone always asks this question, like, they bring up these little upsets that happen. Well, you know, OMG, they split 1-1 with GT, and this team lost Energy Pacemaker, and this team... They always bring up, like, these upsets. But I think Thorin made the point when he was talking about... I think he was talking about Zziai's career and kind of like competitive matches, and like if you weight tournaments, so you have like all of these tournaments over the history of someone's career, and they only perform in one of them. So you have to think about it like this: like LPL playoffs, they have a weight to them because that's what actually matters. But there's so many games in LPL because each team is playing 44 games that these little upsets, if you're actually giving like a collective point for every single game, those numbers are so watered down. That upset against GT or that lost Energy Pacemaker or to Masters 3 or to something like that, that maybe counts for, I mean, like a hypothetical number, 1 point, 0.5, whereas your playoff matches on a test are going to be worth like 10 points. And it's just like people just don't... I just wish they would grasp the scope and the size of this league and just how tiring it is, how many tournaments there are, Demacia Cup, and kind of understand our trepidation why we say, no, it's about the playoffs. Like, you can't judge anything until the playoffs come around. EDG will become a different team. OMG historically becomes an entirely different team. Starhorn Royal Club, somehow, if they even manage to make it there, they always become a different team in playoffs. I'm sure LGD will stop doing whatever the fuck they're doing, smoking crack.
Wow, okay.
They just, like, it's bizarre.
The thing with OMG is that UCI, in a recent interview, actually came out and said, our coach told us to play stuff that we're bad at. Which, on one hand...
Surprise.
Yeah, I mean, we're not shocked at all, but on the other
Surprise.
hand, it's like, some of these are big meta picks, like Cho'Gath, Victor. It's like, if you can't play these champions, you're in trouble to an extent. So there are caveats, and of course, like, if you're playing picks you're not good at, then why do your compositions suck? And why is your draft bad? And why are you letting the enemy team have champions you're good at? And it's just weird questions like this come up in OMG's draft phase. So they're really hard to rate right now. If you look at their performance over the entire season, obviously they beat out IG. If you look at their performance over the past 2 weeks, obviously IG beats out OMG. So I think in terms of talent, though, Invictus Gaming, Edward Gaming, and OMG, if you just look at the raw talent on the roster, position by position, those should be the top 3 teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that doesn't always work out. Right now, I think PG Gaming is very good, and if you look at their roster position by position, they probably shouldn't be in the top 6.
Okay. Let's talk about the other 2 teams that you guys wanted to talk about before we close Demacia Cup. That's your segue. You can now jump.
Edward Gaming?
No.
We didn't really
Not
talk about Edward
Qiao Gu
Gaming.
and Snake.
Oh, can we just talk
Snake.
about... Oh, never mind. I don't want to talk
No,
about
wait.
that. I lied.
Yeah,
Raz?
you should say it just so I know what you...
Wait,
Okay, never mind.
What?
No, what I was going to say
Qiao
is...
Gu? Are we going to talk
What
about
up?
Yes.
Qiao Gu?
No, what I was going to say is irrelevant. Don't worry about it.
Okay, fine.
Okay, Raz, take it. You're the LSPL expert.
Okay, Qiao Gu is a team that should and shouldn't be winning these games. Obviously shouldn't in the sense that like these teams are better. No, okay, I'm not Snake. I don't know. It's so weird to understand.
Snake.
It's
Guys,
so weird.
we
to
can't
be-
keep dissing Snake. They're a top team in the standings. They keep winning. What are you guys doing?
No, Snake is fine. They're just
Snake is fine.
yeah. They're just
Okay.
obviously limited.
This is
by
how you guys all said this. Yeah, Snake's
It reminds
fine.
me.
It's whatever.
It reminds me of when King went into the LPL.
Enthusiasm.
It reminds me when King went into the LPL, and I remember initially saying that teams will not know how to play against them. They won't have the VODs, the experience, the actual I don't know how if they play against them in scrims, but Qiao Gu brings a element that is weird. It's kind of like this. It's an element that keeps coming out of the LSPL, which is like random aggression at times. Like it's calculated sometimes, but other times it's like, oh, they're trying to outplay you, and they don't stop that aggression. Like for instance, it was like World. I remember the third place match, World Elite versus Qiao Gu. There was that one. There was the last fucking game. Jesus, where. Hi. Man.
Hi, how's it going?
Okay.
We'll
It
wait.
was the last game.
It's your show.
But yeah, it was the last game where I don't know if there were like a billion different fights happening or just one massive fight that like extended. Like there were World Elite lost so many fights in quick succession. It was a sight to behold. It was kind of
It's like watching
it was-
in the LPL. I mean, like,
But it was,
there's
it was like
nothing that's not different from the ordinary at all.
It was
It was
like
like-
watching a Starhorn game.
it was like a 5 to 10 minute difference. It's like you could go to the washroom, come back, and the game's already over. And before, it was like you don't understand how something like that could happen. It was just, and it wasn't even calculated either. They just kept fighting them. It was like Qiao Gu. They're a calculated team at times, but then Swift will just try and play his best role as Spirit and kind of like run at them. Initially, like remember when Spirit started playing like Riven jungle and he didn't believe in his team. But like Qiao Gu has great players in like every role except for maybe AD carry and mid lane, depending on how you see that. But like Swift has reliable laners, and I think once they get into a competitive environment and start losing games, they'll start to rely on those laners instead of like Swift starting to go solo carry. But that's just Qiao Gu, and I don't want to rate them as highly as King. I rated King going into the LPL, but they're not a bad team. Like I'd rate them as highly as King now.
Do you think that they're going to... Because obviously we're closing on to the end of the season where people are going to get relegated and be forced into the promotion tournament. Do you think they're going to beat Energy Pacemaker, GAMT, King, Starhorn, Royal Club?
I think they're
Elite,
just auto
Masters 3.
promoted. I think they're getting auto promoted if that's possible. Like
They'll
first two teams.
probably, yeah.
Are they
Winning
first place
the
right
league.
now?
Well,
Playoff.
there's a group stage, so that there are 4 groups. The way LSPL structure is, just to get this out of the way, it's an old OGN format where there are 4 groups of 4. Top 2 teams go on to the round of 8, and then there's a double elimination best of 3 tournament, which is currently what's happening is the LSPL playoffs. And right now they beat their first series, so like they're favorites to win, but there's no like sense of first place that's absolute right now.
If they don't get the auto promotion, will they be able to disqualify or relegate one of the
Yeah.
3 standing LPL teams?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Like Energy Pacemakers. Oh, Royal Club. I just realized if Royal Club has inSec, maybe not. But that's an if.
The way the promotion tournament works, because they released the details here, is it's a seeded bracket. I think it's best of 5s, where the 9th place LPL team will face the 6th place LSPL team, and the next rung will be 10th place or 11th place LPL team faces the 4th place LSPL team, and then like the second half you have the other seedings. It's manipulated in such a way that the first place or the 9th place LPL team will avoid the 3rd place LSPL team on their side of the bracket. So that's kind of the benefit of getting that seed.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them taking out EP and Starhorn. I'm not sure about Gamty. The thing with like every LSPL team is like, it's always a letdown if you put way too much faith in them, with Snake being the huge outlier that got away with running one type of thing and winning with it consistently for a very long time. And you can, like, while they seem like a pretty strong, like, smart team for an LSPL team in terms of their research and stuff put in, because, like, you can tell that their drafting is actually pretty decent, and their team fighting is kind of hard to gauge just because of how stompy Demacia Cup is, and in the third place match, which is the only close set, they're against the worst team fighting team in China easily, or I should say at least in the LPL. So I mean, it's really hard to gauge like if they're even good relative to other LPL teams in terms of team fighting. But the thing is like they obviously showed that when things get a little bit more advanced and they get out of their comfort zone of win lane, win game in LSPL, then they're all lost again. I mean, and so they're gonna have to do best of fives, or they're gonna have to play sets against teams that know how to split push, that know how to run poke, and stuff like this that they showed that they were really uncomfortable with actually in the tournament. So
Yeah.
and those are the times that they had trouble.
And the two games that W took off them, as Jackson was saying, were the poke games, where also they had the split push Diana that actually worked for once.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have these advanced tactics that they still need work on, and, like, again, it kind of makes them a victim of their environment because other LSPL teams kind of have the same mindset of just, you know, win game, win lane, or other way around. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it, but I just, I never put too much faith into these kind of more one-dimensional style teams that just end up stomping their way through the secondary league.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's just put into perspective how ridiculous some of these wins were. I don't know if this is completely 100% true. I'm inclined to believe. Apparently, their coach Hero told them that Maokai counters Victor, but they sort of misunderstood and didn't mean to pick it mid. So they ended up with this really ridiculous composition: Lulu top,
That would make sense. Okay.
Lee Sin jungle, Maokai mid, Sivir AD carry, and Janna support. So first of all, there's no damage really there.
So
that's
much
like
move
really
speed,
high. But you can have a lot of movement speed, and they also did double lock it, even though there's only one AP damage source, which was the Victor. They just like really hard countered the Victor, and they got all the shields with the Lulu and the Janna, and you could not kill this Maokai. So, in theory, what the Maokai did is it just like absorbed so much damage, and then popped its ultimate. And popped his ultimate and threw the damage back at WE and did like stupid amounts of damage for how tanky it was. So,
God, Qiao Gu is a team that's willing to do this too. Like you just see random mid lane picks, like we've seen it in LCK, but like in the playoffs they played Sion mid.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't care. like what they play.
I do think Doinby is a little bit limited in terms of standard meta picks. Like he can play Katarina and Victor, but that's about it.
Yeah, he is their weaker point on that team.
Let's talk about Snake. Okay, so we're going to set the stage here. We've always been critical of Snake. It's time to eat our words. They've been at the top. They've been a consistent team. I think 5.5, 5.6 patches, respectively, give huge buffs to Snake, just because it meshes really well with their playstyle. How does Snake win games, and what has been their unraveling? And which teams have been able to do it? And do you think that they can be unraveled in the playoffs, or are we going to see a new Snake appear? Because we've seen some adjustments to their compositions as of the last few weeks.
Yeah, so obviously Snake got to where they are, being very good at this comp, not to take anything away from them, obviously, because I know it sounds like it's always demeaning and stuff like that, but obviously it works, so they should do it. It's the nature of competition. They've always run this like extremely protective around crystal composition that they've been able to get away with for a very long time, and I think that teams took way too long to actually like think about the strategy and like counter it, I guess you could say, to the point where now I actually feel that it's almost like a too little too late thing. Teams are starting to counter what Snake puts out, but at the same time I feel like Snake's had enough time to develop a little more self-sufficiency with Crystal and stuff like that, because in the middle of the season teams started like slowly figuring it out, And you'd see Crystal in these situations where it was absolutely night and day, his performance, when he had a very supportive composition versus just being self-sufficient. And lately it's been a little better, but there's still in terms of how they look in the playoffs, I still am not overly convinced, because I still think that Baka has really, really problematic champions in this champion pool, and like the Xerath ban is like really huge, and the Lulu ban is still really huge for the team. And obviously these are going to be longer sets as opposed to 2 games, so that's also something to consider. But I mean, the thing that's weird with Snake is I don't think it's like anyone specifically that's able to unravel them. I just think it's anyone that has a good draft and like understands their one-dimensional play. Granted, like I said, now they have had a little bit more familiarity with running other compositions, so teams that are just flat out weaker or just have straight up lesser talent, they can win with other strategies. But I mean, when you're putting them up against like IG or EDG or OMG even, they're not going to be able to get away with just raw talent. They're going to have to fall back to that composition, in which even teams that are slightly weaker but still in contention for playoffs, like LGD, obviously or IG actually is the best example, are smart enough to counter and just even let them have it and potentially win that way. So I might eat my words again, like I did with my predictions with Snake for regular season, but logically speaking, I don't see Snake getting away with what they did in the regular season in the playoffs.
I think because they have such an easy regular season, they'll probably finish second. And their remaining matches are pretty simple relative to OMG's, and OMG is still doing this like whatever thing that they're doing. So OMG will probably finish less than second for the first time ever in the regular season, and Snake will probably finish second. But going into playoffs, I do think they will have some trouble. One of the biggest things is their lane swapping is really bad. And I think the reason why their lane swapping is really bad is because they had I guess the big example is TSM screws over Dyrus and just like ignores him and lets him get ganked repeatedly. They do this to Flandre really hard, and I think part of this is that they don't know how to support him in a lane swap situation, so they just teams will just dive him repeatedly, and they'll try to get something back in Crystal's lane, but it doesn't work out as well for them to make these trades, and Flandre just ends up falling really, really far behind. And the big strength of Snake is in how they use their front line effectively. Like, they love to take these fights around the topside blue buff area, and they'll use their zoning abilities to just their frontline zoning abilities to manipulate the chokes and zone out for Crystal really well. But if you don't have a strong frontline, if you aren't getting kills like the way they used to do it when the lane swap was less common, they had the 1v1 and then Beast would just can't top, and both of them would get really ahead off that. But when they don't have this opportunity for their frontline to get really, really beefy, they don't do as well in these fights. So I think that's a big problem for them as well.
Agreed.
Yeah. A thing that I'm noticing, it really depends on what patch the playoffs will be on, because a few things that it's worth noting is that before Baka had Xerath, he had Ziggs. Like, that was his main champion. That's what he played a lot.
This is true.
Yeah, so now that option's opened up to him. He can go in that route, and if he goes that route, it also depends on what coaching, like what their coach really wants, like is like allows them to play. Because what Beachy did in picks and bans is not that smart. Like, they banned out Kalista, Kog'Maw, and honestly, he has other carries. He can go on that Draven, and it's like apparently his coach just tells him not to. And it's
Draven's an awful champion in the meta. It's like the meta of tanks.
I just really like, just bouncing off what Rez said, I just really hate when people ban carries in general again, or 80 carries in general. Like, that's not the correct answer. You want to ban like the things that are horrifying the carry.
Honestly, they could have given him Kog'Maw. Like, his Kog'Maw win rate isn't even that good. It's like 3 of 6 or something this season. And like, they could have given it, like, the bans. I think honestly we fixated on the ban strategy, and maybe the one really meaningful ban was probably the Xerath in that series. It's just they manipulated the lane swap so hard, and they beat Flandre up so hard in those games that I don't think it mattered. Like, that was the issue. We say, okay, they banned them out. And yeah, that probably had a big part of it, because I think his Corki is really underwhelming, but I mean, overall, I think it didn't really matter.
But by banning out a person's champion pool, you can then predict what champion is going to take next. And then from that, if you match up the 2v2 and you force the lane swap because they don't want to take the weaker 2v2 into it, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of these things bleed into each other.
One thing I noticed is that Beast probably needs to move away from Nunu, in the sense that the Nunu pick, like, Nunu is great, don't get me wrong, but he needs to be able, like, if teams can really abuse the fact that they do the lane swaps really poorly, and so it really limits his ability to really force any plays, and he looks awkward in this point, because he doesn't really help out his lanes at that point. He just kind of, like, continues to jungle. And I feel like if you give him a playmaking jungler, like, I'm sure he can play it. Like, I'm sure he has that ability. Like, it will, like, encourage him to do something. Like, he doesn't... It looks like he doesn't know what to do in that situation. And I like, as much as I think he's better than Reborn, that's something, like, that's Snake's old jungler, by the way.
And part of the reason why Flandre used to be so strong in the LSPL is because of him. He was more supportive.
Yeah, Reborn was a lot more supportive of Flandre in the lane. And Flandre was playing a lot more champions, but that's just because I feel like that's like different coaching staff, or like, I think at least. And at the same time, different mindset. But you give him more support, and he'll do well. Like, and if he does well, like this was old Snake. Like if Flandre does well in his lane, and if he can carry out through the early game, or at least do okay through the early game, then you can, like, rely at least a little bit more on, like, Crystal's ability to, like, hold out until late. Like, that's his whole deal. Like, I don't know. They'll figure out. I think they will figure it out in playoffs. I think they'll have problems afterwards, like in the summer.
Okay, speaking of playoffs, I have a note on my topics for today, and it says, quote, "I'm throwing down about Pawn," end quote.
Uh-oh.
And this was supposed to be given to Kelsey Moser.
Yeah, so, the Pawn debate. If we're talking about Edward Gaming...
Is there a debate?
Random, yeah, I had a
There's
debate
about to be a throwdown. It says so in my notepad.
I had a debate with a certain person on Twitter who is hosting the stream on his Twitch channel currently.
Shit!
I have gloves.
He made
and the gloves are coming down.
He made some comment who, if Twitch chat and my fellow panelists will believe it, is that Pawn is currently the best player in the world. Not just China, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Not just in China, but in the world.
What hour was this? Was it like 4 a.m.?
Demacia Cup finals.
Okay.
I want to preface this, by the way, because this is funny because I'm usually the person that hates the idea of someone saying X is best in the world in a team game, okay? Because obviously there's a lot of elements that go into this game. I am not speaking mechanically. Like, I don't think he is the best player mechanically. Obviously, there's Rookie, there's Faker. Yeah, there's Faker. I don't know.
What's just going on?
Did you
Wow, he just hit Faker and he was like,
Faker. No. But what I am saying is that he understands his role. Maybe it's easier to understand his role when he's on ADG and everybody has, like, the fucking script right in front of them, or what it seems like. But he has played on that team so efficiently. Like, obviously, Clearlove and Deft pretty much carry the early game, and they carry the tone. But strategically he plays it out so like he has. I can't even count how many champions he's played. You can make the debate that he's played them poorly, but you can't ban him out.
Okay.
Okay, go on.
Just to help Raz out, because I feel like I'm getting a little flustered, you're saying that Pawn is the greatest player right now because his massive champion pool, which he has shown, I think I can agree with you. Like, yeah, you can say some picks have been questionable, but he is performing really well on multiple styles and multiple champions, and that he's carrying, you said late game or early game of EDG?
I think he plays really well in team fights. I think he plays extremely well in team. Before he used to be...
Kelsey, shut the fuck up. It's Raz's turn.
No, she'll say like say afterwards because I think I'm probably overrating his team fighting, but I think his team
Well,
fighting.
why do you think his team fighting's good? I'm helping. I'm throwing you a lifeline.
I think you just have to like watch his team fighting, and maybe that's just gonna like.
Someone get the jaws of life. We need to help him get out of this. Rewind.
Like,
We can edit this out later. It's cool. It's cool.
This has been China Talk episode 4. No, just kidding.
No.
Pawn used to be known for his
What do
laning.
you think is amazing about him? He's good for his laning phase, but this is transitioned into team fighting. What does he do for EDG in a team fight that you really like? Is it the fact that he can play so many different roles that does the fact that he has such a wide champion pool allow him to fit different roles inside EDG's team fight?
Pretty much. Like his biggest thing now is that like it's not so much how like how large his champion pool is, but literally he can change the form of EDG's team comp almost. It feels effortlessly. Like with anybody, with any other champion, with any other player, you put him on EDG and you'll notice specific styles, specific like play styles to that champion. Okay, he's limited on this play style, but you look at Pawn and he can play poke, he can play assassins, like, and maybe that, and 100% that's because Clearlove is able to get him through that laning phase and to the point in which he's okay, like he's completely fine in team fights, but he can play those team fights really well and allow Deft to like completely carry through the end game.
Okay, so you're saying that you think that Pawn is the carry of EDG because of his massive depth of champion pool and the versatility of playstyle. And because he plays the mid position, it's the hinge that he can change EDG's composition. So if EDG are a really strong team, they can play poke, hard engage, rotation, and that Pawn is the fundamental core of that due to his champion pool.
God. Now that you guys
Did I clarify the statement? I don't think it's a bad argument. I think that there's some merit to what you said. Maybe not the defining thesis, but the supporting points are lining up.
All right, Frosty. I know you're trying to help me out here. I think I'm.
But no,
starting
but
to
is that correct?
That's true. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the point I'm trying to
I think
hammer.
that's a fair. Like I said, I don't think the thesis is perhaps like Pawn the best player of EDG, but I think the supporting points of like versatility and changing EDG's composition. Because if you think about the strength of EDG, a big part of it is the fact that they can play multiple styles in a region that historically has been dominated by maybe one or two. Okay.
Yeah.
Kelsey.
Okay. I'm just gonna start off by saying that I think the reason why Pawn gets away with so much random shit, like, he literally plays whatever he feels like because he is the Darien of Edward Gaming. If you guys know if you guys understand, like, in this context, the way that we described Darien on Moscow 5 when they were at their peak was Darien would just do, like, a bunch of random shit in lane. Sometimes he would do really well. He would overextend. He would play like there was no jungler, and he would like sometimes do really well in lane. Sometimes he would get destroyed. Sometimes he would be running across the map and playing random stuff like AP Shyvana, and he would be like running through the enemy team's base while his team took objectives. I think that Pawn is the Darien of Edward Gaming because
Comparing
he just
Pawn to Darien is more offensive than saying Pawn is the best player in the world.
But that's like the best way you can compare, and I can agree with that. I think because that's true. Like Darien had a style that he got away with that made them work. Like he was bad and probably God damn it.
Kelsey.
But I can understand this.
No, he does very similar shit. Like he
does.
picks Fizz,
Except
and
he dominates his lane and the enemy jungler
not
every
every
single time.
time. Not every time. Like I disagree because like he'll play these random picks like Lux and he'll just get camped and shit on and like go 0-8 and it doesn't matter. But like it doesn't matter.
There's an
and
outlier. Let's use it as the standard for Pawn's
No, and then
performance.
he'll pick Fizz and he'll chase people across the map and he'll be really ahead, but he'll like throw his lead trying to kill Dade. Like
yeah, but that's the thing. I
so and
No.
the
Raz,
way he gets his leads,
don't support
like,
her. You're against her.
No, the way
I am against her. I just want to put in a counterpoint after.
the way he gets his lead is you can see instances where he'll go really aggro, but he'll have like 3 Chinese people at any given point in time like camping his lane and ready to like back him up.
What?
And he's able to have like he's able to have this ridiculous pressure just because EDG's map pressure as a whole is so insane. Like, they have really on-point warding from Mako. Like, there was this instance in Demacia Cup where he was about to get solo killed by Rookie, but Mako was just, like, magically there, and obviously he was playing far ahead
Are you
because he
telling
knew
me-
Mako was
And
there.
Clearlove.
Wait.
There we go. But here's
And
my
he
counter.
threw in the lantern, and then, like,
I
immediately-
understand, Kelsey.
Immediately gets pulled out.
I
They give him the
understand.
blue buff, and then they 3-man mid and kill Rookie. Like,
That you're
this is EDG's playstyle. They
using.
run around the map, they buff up Pawn so that he can be this big, massive distractor. Saying that, like, but his role and his impact on the game, I think, is he has less of a role because he can literally do whatever. He can do well in lane and not do well in lane. As long as he's being a distraction, EDG will win games.
Okay.
But I feel here's why I feel that's like an unfair comparison, because Darien actually literally plays good champions every game, and he plays that playstyle and loses lane and like gets killed randomly. But you see Pawn, I don't think, like, Pawn plays it kind of like a Dade style, and that's like, and so there's always this debate as well: is Dade a good mid laner? Is Pawn a good mid laner? Because he finds a way to like kind of play really shitty. Oh no, Dade plays well like good champions, but he plays in a shitty manner. So that's not even a good comparison as well. So like Pawn is his own thing in which he plays shitty champions. Like Lux is not a good champion in that meta in which it was played. Like Veigar was not a good champion in the meta of which it was played, but EDG played around it. And sometimes you'll find him playing over aggressively, but then he has a counter gank, but maybe he played over aggressively. He's allowed to play over aggressively. He plays over aggressively. That's his mindset, because he has his team surrounding him. He actually
Okay.
plays rather passively when when he has no support.
Would you look at Drexen's face right now? Because this is pretty much, I'm like on par with this. No.
Okay, I want to hear Drexen answer.
Drexen, go.
I don't think that you can call upon like even the most valuable player on that team, even given just the fact that Deft exists on that team.
Thank
like,
you.
Okay, not only is he replacing Name, who we all criticize for it being essentially like just not changing anything because it was a clone, but Deft proved us all wrong. He's played. All right, we're talking about Pawn's champion pool. Deft has played 9 champions.
Yeah.
And he's done well on them, whether the team's playing around him or whatever. Like a lot of the things, I feel like you're crediting to Pawn. I feel like he'd be credited to Deft. Like
But that's
his
the
KD is
debate that's gonna
insane.
happen.
His damage dealt is insane, and also now we have the person who's literally the best like team fighter in the world on AD carry. Like now knows how to lane very well.
Yeah.
And a
that's-
lot of that is because EDG camps Deft's lane. So I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about camping
No, they
Pawn's
seriously can't Pawn.
It's no like
Like,
that
at
is
this
Maybe
point-
in a couple
Yeah.
outliers, but on the...
No,
the...
at this point, the thing is that
Oh my
Koro,
God.
Koro, Clearlove, and Mako are all roaming. All lanes are being camped. Their map pressure as like this kind of like Chinese mafia squad is really insane. Like this is the core of EDG, is like these 3 support players literally being everywhere at once. Like you try to gank a lane and there will probably be 2 players from EDG in the sidelines counter ganking you. Like this is something that you have to expect as a jungler playing against this team.
And by the
Sure,
way,
and the style is exactly why Clearlove's probably looked so damn good on Lee Sin when a month ago we would have probably slapped anyone in the face who would say that Clearlove's like the best Lee Sin in China. And I mean, that's just how it is. Like, they're very reactive, and Lee Sin's a very good reactive person that comes in with Safeguard and, you know, can pull off plays really, really easily that way, like in a reactive manner. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I get that he gets a lot more attention, but I mean, okay, it's still not as much attention as other teams give to their AD carries. Like, it's definitely not as much attention as Snake gives to their AD carry.
and by the
So,
way, my entire
I don't know.
point is not surrounding that Pawn is the best on his team. I'm saying
But-
he's like as a mid laner, as a
Said
mid
he's
laner,
the
he's the
best player
best.
in the world.
Mid in the world, mid.
No.
That was literally the tweet. I can
Literally player.
copy.
Okay.
I can copy the tweet. It says mid. Like,
Okay, but yeah,
I know
I will
the rage in your eyes just like blinded me.
I will say that
That's what it
definitely.
was.
I will say that I really do enjoy Def and Pawn both, in the sense that I feel like they're both, like, out of most of the Koreans that have come to China that have actually been premier like god tier talents, I really think that those have been like the best in terms of transforming to the team's needs. You know what I mean? Because obviously Pawn's always been a really good 1v1, but his team fight hasn't always been exceptional because that he's never really had to deal with that in his old team. But now that EDG's a team fighting central team, he's getting a little better.
They're a skirmish team. I don't. Okay, no, I'm cutting in. This is where I'm starting to disagree.
Oh, okay.
I've sat back quiet enough.
I'm not saying he's a great team fighter. I'm saying that he's adjusted a little bit to the team's
He
needs.
hasn't adjusted at all. EDG adjusted around them. Think about Koro, what type of player he was last year and what type of player he is now. Think about Clear Love, what type of player he's been showing out to be. Everything about EDG has conformed through their Chinese members to their Korean counterparts. Yes, Deft is able to lane, but that's because he gets fucking camped by 3 Chinese mafias, like Kelsey likes to say. They play a skirmish style, a roam style. They don't play a 5v5 style. It's not like Pawn's like, hey guys, I'm really good at team fighting, or I'll make myself good at team fighting so we can do this. No! Come on, what?
I don't see how Clearlove changed in that regard, though, because Clearlove's always been the one that makes his AD carry look insanely good. Because he's always about zone control. And
all I'm saying is that the Korean players haven't changed their play style. It's been the Chinese players that have grown and their adaptation has been through the Chinese players that have transformed EDG, not the Korean players. And anyone who says that it's the Korean players that are carrying EDG, I agree.
Never said
Deft and Pawn are amazing players, but it's the Chinese players that make that team.
I never said anything about carrying.
It's just
the roles they play on the team.
Yeah.
I agree that the difference between EDG last year and EDG this year is that last year the carries adapted to like Koro and FCZF and Clearlove. And this year I think that now that Koro has developed into a top laner, because he was relatively new to this like high level of play. Yeah. And he always had this flaw in terms of he only plays tanks, he only does zoning, he doesn't do well in lane. And now he has much more diversity in what he's able to pick and what he's able to be effective on. He's able to carry in some instances, he's able to play from behind and still zone really effectively. So he has like all these dimensions. Clearlove also has, Clearlove always has these kind of peaks that he hits in terms of being a high map pressure jungler. Like, he can hit these peaks. He's done so in the past, but this is the longest time that he's ever sustained that kind of play style. So the growth and adaptation that Clearlove and Koro have been able to do, I think, has been very fundamental. And I think part of the reason why this change was necessary is because at the beginning of the split, Deft still sucked in lane, right? Deft still sucked in lane. Pawn was like pretty bad in team fighting, so they were at this really awkward position, which I think was a problem with Samsung Blue, which was that Pawn couldn't teamfight and Deft couldn't play early, so they were at like these weird odds originally, and this is why they made the Dade swap. So you had this situation where they decided, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to fix this, we're going to camp Deft's lane and make sure he has a good lane phase. So eventually Deft developed a much better...
they're camping whose lane phase?
This was early on in the split, I'm saying.
But Deft, not Pawn?
Now they camp Pawn too.
Okay, I'm clarifying your statement.
And guess what? Pawn lost lane when they didn't camp him early on in the season too. I'm just saying.
I tend to remember Pawn 1v1 killing his mid lane opponent multiple times in multiple sets.
I tend to remember Hatong 1v1 killing him too. I really do not care about 1v1 kills. Like, they matter so little.
I'm not talking Kelsey, but the thing is Pawn's playstyle is that he wins his lane. Like, yeah, Clearlove can show up and it's like this weird skirmish thing because that's what Pawn excels in. But he wins his lane through either Clearlove's random skirmish show up like a 2v2 gank, and then he immediately walks into the enemy jungle and he just blows up the jungler. That's what Pawn does.
He started being able to do that halfway through the split. I'm saying that this is like EDG developing over time. You're not listening to me saying this is what the problems they had early on.
I just think you're wrong.
Okay, anyways. But it comes down to the fact that EDG, it's so difficult to ascertain, like, individual strength. This is, like, the same issue that everyone has actually had with, like, Samsung organization. When you see a team that at their top, that they're actually, their team play covers up their weaknesses, it's difficult to find out how good they really are. Like, for instance, Koro plays so damn well, so it's really hard to find out if he is actually a, like, godlike top laner, or like, actually, he's just left on his own island at this point. Which is
I would say, honestly, Koro has the least interjection on that team. I'm pretty impressed with that.
Yeah, actually, he's actually the least. His lane is affected the least, to be honest, by the roam squads.
Yeah, I think he teleports, so he's, like, part of the roam squad, so yeah.
Yeah. So that team, like, I love that team for that reason. And then actually, it was like a compliment that I used to put like for King was that they were such a team play heavy, like they had such a strong element of team play that it was like, oh, is this player actually really good at his role, or is it just like the team as a whole covering up for each other's weaknesses? But now they're all shit. So you know what? That's King. That was my mini rant on King there. That's a good guy. Yeah, that's EDG. So I don't know. Maybe I'm probably really wrong on Pawn. So I want to wait till playoffs to see how other teams.
Raz, come on, stand for your convictions.
So
But I have.
Don't
Yeah.
just bend to her will.
just
But that she makes good points. That's how discussions are supposed to happen.
Don't
Like, you
just
can't
bend to her will.
I'm not a
You get
Republican.
no, I
Final-
agree. I agree. No, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah,
I'll
it's cool. Everything I said was wrong. Yeah, it's okay.
I'll
No,
make a comment to support Raz's opinion and my own opinion, and then I'll stop talking. So, I think that Raz identifies that Pawn is able to have like a certain amount of pressure, and I do agree his team fighting has improved. I still think he will make some like weird positional errors in team fighting, and we saw in like a couple of games in the GMT set, and then he'll run around, and it's like almost like he doesn't care, and maybe he has a different speed, and he plays more seriously in some games. But it just makes me feel like his job is kind of like to be a red herring carry until Deft comes in, because we've seen games actually be very even despite like a lane advantage one way or the other, either in top or mid, until Deft shows up and starts killing people. So it's like he's there to distract so that Deft can do whatever he wants in lane.
What is this hand-holding kumbaya bullshit?
At the end, I think that, like, from my perspective,
No, you hang
can
up first.
see that as him having like a fundamental role, but I think there have been games where Pawn has done poorly. There have been games where he's picked random stuff, and it seems like it literally doesn't matter how he does.
Yeah.
So I think that he might have the least game impact of any single player on the team, and that's why I don't rate him over other mids, even at China. So.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Because I value game impact very highly, and you have mids like Cool and Whalus and Rookie, who, if they don't do well in their specific playstyles, their team loses the game.
Hi, Drexen.
What's up? How you doing?
Have you been?
I've been, I don't know, conflicted.
What's
Conflicted is the best word.
what's bothering you, friend?
All this hostility with my friends.
There's no hostility. I think Raz is completely wrong, but I think he should stand up and own it.
I can
But
agree.
okay.
I love
See,
you,
no,
Raz.
but this is the value of discussion. The value of discussion is understanding. at
No
some
one.
point
I'm
you're
not
gonna be
saying
wrong.
that
But
there's
then
no
you'll have-
value in discussion. I just think that we always get into this like clusterfuck of, no, you're right. It's okay. No, I agree, but
I still think Duff's the best player on the team.
thank you.
Yeah, well, he is, but like that's he's an AD carry, and it's like
And,
you
like,
can't say
not to
you can't say
mention
the best AD carry right now in China slash.
Deft is the
Slash
best
the
AD
world.
carry in the world.
Yeah, there you go. I don't.
And-
I was
and,
like
like,
kind
not
of
to
like
mention-
after
not-
my
not-
pawn statement.
Not to mention, like, I
They
don't
love
really have
the
I don't
AJ
really-
Godmaker.
yeah, I don't really have a bias towards Deft either.
Yeah.
I actually have one against him because I was such a huge Name fanboy, so of course I was going to be extremely critical of his replacement, right? And I was like, I actually don't think this is going to do anything for the team, and I was proven wrong. And that's what actually excites me about Deft, is that I have been proven wrong in that sense, and I do think that he is a better he is more suitable for this team than I think Name would be, but that's kind of a bold move to make, and it actually makes me feel like I'm like betraying my lover or something when I say that. So I'll say that like loosely, but I don't know. I also don't.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that at this time last year, these teams faced in a best of 5, and it was a very similar outcome. And in the first game in particular, Clearlove had literally 0 map pressure, and Name had like 100% kill participation. And IG ended up, and he just roamed on Twitch and assassinated people, and Clearlove's ganks like almost completely failed. There wasn't like massive lane advantages one way or the other, but IG surrendered in 26 minutes. So, I mean, you kind of I think that there's a different environment. And obviously, right now, Deft is performing to this amazing level, and you can almost not see weaknesses in his play. Where I don't think there's ever been that case with Name. So, I will say that I think maybe overall Deft is definitely better, but I think that it's hard to say just because we have so much more team cohesion on the squad than I think last year's team ever did, which is weird because of the language barrier, right?
Yeah. Well,
Closing
EDG
statements.
discussions.
Raz?
Ellis? Okay, so closing statement. Going into Demacia Cup, I was like, this is the time for the LSPL squads to like rise up and show their strength, and then everyone faltered except for Qiao Gu. So
Including the tournament organizers. But I mean, really, I guess there's not too much you can do with venue applications, so.
I think
Except move to a net cafe.
Yeah, what
That is the
I want to
best
see
choice.
cameras in the net cafe. I want to see them playing there in the crowded, like, I don't know. I want to see that environment. Oh,
They've got like fans behind them, like rubbing their shoulders.
I heard that there's actually like a laws in China where you can't, if your net cafe is open beyond midnight, you can't have minors. And of course, like there are a lot of minors on these pro teams, so they're obviously violating laws for
I
this
hear
tournament.
there's also rules about playing Texas Hold'em or any sort of poker.
Okay. Yes. You're not allowed to play Texas Hold'em in China.
I wonder if that
What?
ever happens.
I don't understand this country.
I don't think any laws in China are broken. I mean, that's
Let's be real about that. Okay.
they're all good people, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, the relegation tournament I'm gonna love because this is the true time for it's like the true moment for LSPL teams.
This is your shout out to LSPL teams.
Yeah,
The one true believer, Raz.
I just want OMD to rise up. I love OMD so much. Hawken amazing. It's like if you see
To clarify, he's not referring to the German jungler.
amazing the support from OMD. If you see like the faces of like amazing when he's OMD amazing when he engages because he's like an engaged support. So when he engages, he like yells. Like I guess that's every LSPL team. You kind of hear them in the studio and like they engage because every time they engage, there's like a random scream in the background. And it's like okay, so what's gonna happen in this engage? And you just see the fight break out. But he's like the most expressive person on that team. But yeah, I think this team's really good, and I want to see OMD go into the LPL. So
Jackson, your shout outs?
Okay, so yeah, one thing I'm actually really excited for is I'm so excited for LPL playoffs because, like, obviously EDG's always hovered around the top of the standings even for regular season and stuff, but I don't think there's ever been a situation where they've actually been this dominant in a regular season, and they're like absolutely crushing it. Like the not like the third party tournaments, that's to be expected. Like they've always dumpstered everyone in those and gotten first, but I don't think we've ever seen EDG this strong going into playoffs. So I'm like,
We've never seen Clear Love this consistent. Like
yeah,
that's
that
the big
too.
thing.
And so yeah, I'm actually really excited to see if EDG like is like still has that amplification that they always have in their play when it comes to playoffs, and it's even like more stompy and like every set ends in like an hour, or if it's gonna be like some reverse shit and they like end up throwing somehow and playing really terribly. But either way, I think the playoffs will be a good gauge on if the team actually is the best in the world or not, at least until we see more international play, and so I'm pretty excited for that.
MSI.
Yes, MSI hype.
Hype.
And I like the format better.
Unless all LPL teams besides EDG just suck massively, and then they get trampled.
Kelsey,
Watch
shout-outs.
Watch World Elite get into the playoffs and then win playoffs and go to MSI.
Dude, oh my god.
Oh my god. WE's playoff dreams are still alive. They can make it. They pretty much have to. Their biggest obstacle is going to be 2-0ing Gamty, in my estimation. So, good job. Good luck with the 2-0ing of Gamty. I say facetiously.
Kelsey.
Shoutouts. Okay, so LSPL playoffs resumes tonight. 2 sets have already been played. Tonight's big set is going to be ADG, which is my favorite LSPL team, with their new mid laner. clan, and against Young Glory. So that will be an interesting set.
Young Glory is dead to me.
Yeah, they're not
Okay.
the best.
With
Wait,
that,
is the other
everyone
set's
wave.
also? Oh wow, okay, never mind.
Everyone wave.
See you guys.
I'm waving, you can't see it.